it's Wes, and today we are talking about a very interesting lens from a new lens manufacturer, and this is the Brightin Star 11 2.8 full frame fisheye lens. Woohoo, this is fun. As always, starting with the build quality. This is a chonky lens. It is hefty. Oh. This feels like a weapon. An all-metal design. Unlike a lot of lenses of similar designs, this appears to be fully internally focusing. If we look on the back here, we don't have any weather sealing on this lens. Built-in metal hood. We have the metal cap, which is common for these Chinese brand lenses. The fit and finish is very nice. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10 for build quality. I have no issues here, except for the lack of weather sealing. Handling and usability. Well, number one, it is a bit heavy, but that's to be expected. It's a full frame lens. That front element is gigantic to get that sort of field of view. The focus and aperture rings are perfectly dampened. It is a declicked design, permanently so. I don't believe that there is any way of making this clicked. Unfortunately, the aperture ring is on the front of the lens, and being declicked, it gets bumped constantly. You always have to keep track of where your aperture is on this lens because it's never going to be where you think it is. And then on the back here, you have a very long focus throw, which seems a little bit odd for such a wide angle lens. There isn't a lot of focusing to be done here. One of the hardest things about using this lens is just keeping your feet out of the shot because this is so incredibly wide at 11 millimeters. Now, one issue is this metal slide-on lens cap. Sometimes it will fall off by accident, sometimes it'll end up in your bag, and over time it is going to attach to the lens less and less well as this padding around the side kind of wears down, which is a bigger problem for this lens than most lenses because this front element has to be protected at all times. It is hard to protect it because it is so bulbous, and that is just the nature of it. That will likely become an issue over time. Overall, feels great in the hand, is fairly compact. I'm going to give that an 8.5 out of 10 for handling and usability. Image quality. And to be perfectly honest, I am shocked at the image quality of this lens. I thought I was going to have a ton of fun with like crazy flares and totally over-the-top effects, but this resists flaring very well. We have very well controlled chromatic aberration. Wide open you get a little bit, but not that much. There's a little bit of blooming from being backlit when you're wide open, but not that much. At 2.8 wide open, it's not incredibly sharp, but definitely usable. Once you stop it down to f4, you would have no idea that you're using a relatively low-cost lens from a newer Chinese lens manufacturer. It's kind of crazy. And you can stop it all the way down to f22. Beyond f11, though, you do lose a lot of sharpness to diffraction, because this is a very tiny aperture, and the smaller the actual physical aperture size, the more the diffraction. And when you have a wider angle lens, because aperture is a function of a fraction of the focal length, the aperture is that much smaller. Color reproduction is also very good. It's not excellent, but very good. Now, your colors might get washed a little bit when you're wide open and have some sort of a colored backlight situation, but overall, again, surprisingly good. I'm going to give the image quality a 7.5 out of 10 for this. Much better than I expected it to be. This video is brought to you by me, by my merch store, where you can get awesome shirts like this. Go take some photos. If you're getting a little used to that slogan. We have different colors, different sizes, and some different patterns going on down there, so check it out in the link in the description below. Image character. Honestly, I expected it to be a little crazier for image character. Like I said, the flares are well controlled, and I was expecting to kind of go crazy with this thing. Now, there is obviously the character of being a fisheye lens, but your mileage may vary on that. You might not always want the fisheye look. You can rectify this a fair amount and get it looking like quasi-rectilinear if you so choose, because it is pretty sharp, but you will lose a ton of detail around the edges. When you do get flare, it is quite lovely when you step it down and get like that cinematic blobbing through the corners of the frame. That can look fantastic. Wide open, the bokeh is surprisingly good, and you wouldn't expect to see bokeh with this lens, but you can get crazy close with this thing. It's practically a macro lens. You can focus right in here. The minimum focus distance on this thing is 17 centimeters, or about 6 inches. You are like right on top, and that's from the sensor, so you're like right on top of things when you are focusing, if you so choose, which gives a whole other world of possibilities in image character. And I really enjoyed that. Honestly, it just tends to be a surprisingly neutral lens, which I wasn't expecting. So for image character, I'm going to give this a 7.5 out of 10. Focusing performance. This is a manual focus lens. We do not have electronic contact for automatic focus assist features, but when this is wide open, it is sharp enough for focus peaking to work fantastically well. Works the whole way through the range. Now, because it's an ultra-wide lens, focus peaking can be a little bit dicey because it can be fooled into thinking that a lot of stuff is in focus when it's not necessarily. However, you do have a lot of wiggle room there unless your subject is right on top of you. But overall, very easy to focus. Focus performance as a manual focus lens is going to be a 4 out of 10. To get any higher than that, you would need some electronics involved for the scoring. Value. This Brightin Star comes in at $260 US. Not bad for a full frame lens with this much glass and metal. Now, it's not the best value in the world, and we'll get to that, but just holding this in my hand, I feel like it's a bit of a stretch to produce a lens with this much material in it for that price. But let's go through some competition here. Some have said that this is likely a rebadge of the TT Artisan fisheye 11 2.8, but it just has the same numbers. The focus and aperture ring are switched on it. There's a different lens design, so it's clearly not a related lens to that. This is their own lens, and that lens is $215, so it is less than this. There's a 7 Artisans 10 2.8 for $256, and if you want to go crazy, there is a Venus 0D 12mm 2.8 for $850, and more similarly, there's a Rokinon 12 2.8 for $500. That's it. Not a lot of competition in this range. Is this the cheapest fisheye lens you can get at that size? No, it's not. But it's not that far off either, so I'm going to give that an 8 out of 10 for value. So what does that give us? A total score of 74.2%. Let's have a look here. It is very close to its friend, spoilers. We're about midway down the pack for scoring. But a phenomenal first or early effort from Brightin Star. They came out with a bunch of lenses all at once, and honestly, this one is a banger. If you are looking for a fisheye lens, I would strongly recommend this. It is a solid choice. If you want to pick one up, there are links down in the description below to help support this channel and feed my fat cats. But until next time, let's go take some awesome photos.